All right, it's 10 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I'll just remind everybody, if all the committee members will please keep your cameras on and stay muted unless you're talking, but know that you can talk at any time you want, or you can raise your hand if you're a committee member. And Amber, would you take roll, please?
Yeah, hold on one second here. Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Bill,
Here.
Byron,
Here.
Cassie,
Here.
Cindy,
Here.
Kara,
Here.
Rita,
Here.
Chris,
Here.
Carl,
Here.
Candy, Mandy,
Here.
Paul,
Here.
Christina, and then I believe I saw Commissioner Davis online there as well.
Hey, Christy.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
And Candy's here too. I see her hand raising.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for doing that. Let's move to the second item, which is discussion and possible action to amend April 7th meeting minutes. They have been posted on the website under meetings and minutes tabs. And Chris, we apologize because we made a typo in the minutes. Your last name was spelled incorrectly, and thank you for letting us know that. That has been corrected. Are there any other further corrections that need to be made? Candy, you have your hand up. I don't know if, oh, okay. All right. Being no further corrections, the meeting stand approved as corrected. And now we'll move to agenda item number 3, public or written comments on received non-agenda items. Abby, have we received any other comments than what were posted from the public, or has anybody signed up to speak?
No other comments, and just looking around, no one else signed up to speak, so we're good.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 4 is a staff update on education changes in Senate Bill 1968. And Summer is going to provide us an update on that.
Good morning, everyone. I am Summer Mandel. I'm Government and Strategic Communications Director for the agency. So I've been following the legislative session. As you guys probably know, it ended on June 2nd. Our big bill, that is our housekeeping bill for track, was SB 1968. That passed, and it is effective on January 1st, 2026. And there are a few education-related items that are in that bill. So, for instance, all brokers are going to be required to take the broker responsibility course at the broker's license application and also renewal. And this is regardless of whether they are sponsoring agents or intend to sponsor agents. Another change is that TREC will be able to adjust sales agent qualifying education requirements by rule instead of statute, and that includes an initial sales agent license. So that just makes things a little more nimble for us. We don't have to wait for a legislative session to go ask legislature for changes. Another item in here is that public high schools are going to be excluded from qualifying education provider requirements. I think that's pretty much it for education changes. Do y'all have any questions about that or the legislative session in general?
Anyone have any questions? Paul
Yeah,
has
I
his hand
do.
up.
Yeah. So just as far as the broker responsibility for anyone with their broker's license, you said that goes into effect January 1st, I believe.
Correct. Yes.
So let's just say a broker is renewing their license January 15th. I'm just picking a day. As of that point, they would have to have broker responsibility for that renewal, or is it rolled to their next one?
That's a great question. I think that there's some bill language, and I'm going to pull it up, that actually addresses that. And I think it's tied to the application, the date the application is submitted. I'm looking at Denise, but I can also verify
That's
that.
typically the trigger because renewals are created 90 days before the license expires. So we're constantly creating renewals for upcoming licenses. It's a cleaner line in the sand to make the trigger the application date. So it's typically submission of the renewal application.
Yeah, so I just pulled up the bill. That's correct. That's the language. It'll be based on the application date.
So this is application for renewal or application for original broker's license?
Oh.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think how to tell my brokers that expire in January, February, March. So I guess they would, if it's triggered from the renewal and that's 90 days ahead of time, would it be safe to say anybody renewing in January, February, or March would probably not have to take it?
It would depend on when they submit the renewal application. So for January licenses, we'll open those, at the end of October, kind of near the end of October of this year. So the communication, the renewal notices will likely be updated to warn them in advance that effective January 1, if you renew after that date, depending on the rule language that follows, it'll be based on when you submit the renewal, not necessarily tied to your expiration date. If your renewal is open and it's before January 1, then that license holder could renew and not be subject to the new requirements.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to agenda item number 5. Discussion and possible action regarding the following. Subsection 53560, definitions. 53565, responsibilities and operations of providers of qualifying courses. Subsection 53570, definitions. And subsection 535.72, approval of non-elective continuing education courses. And this pertains to the requirement to check IDs by looking at the physical ID and the need for proctoring. All of these changes were proposed at the May meeting, and we have received some public comments. So we can take a look at those to see if any changes need to be made in light of the comments. And then we can make recommendations based on that. So I'll open it up for questions from the committee on the public comments that have been received or your comments after looking at it. And the first one, Jan DeBell made 3 comments. 2 against getting rid of a photo ID requirement, and 1 against getting rid of the proctoring requirement.
And I can address her comment a little bit. I think this may be a little bit of a misunderstanding on what that rule language does. So that changed from checking the photo ID to verifying the ID does not necessarily preclude use of a photo ID to verify identification. We're just not naming that specifically. So that could be one way that it happens. There could be other ways based on technology that allow you to perform that same type of verification. So did want to just note that.
Okay, outstanding. Any questions on Jan's comment there? All right, if we can look at the next comment. And it's from Christopher Horn, and he is speaking in, let me look at my quick notes here, in favor of the removing the proctoring of the exams. Does anybody have any questions on his comment? He does get into a specific involving a provider, which I don't know that we need to get into that specific.
Right.
Hearing no questions, the next one is from Tiffany Palmer, and she speaks in favor of getting rid of third line online proctors. Does anybody have any comments in reference to Tiffany's? All right. The next one brings back from Jan, talking about proctoring and identification. Does anybody have any questions regarding Jan's second comment? All right. Moving to the next one. And Rebecca, please forgive me. I am not going to try to mispronounce your last name. So this is from Rebecca P. She is in favor of removal of the proctoring requirement and becoming more flexible with the term of verifying identification. Does anybody have any questions on Rebecca's comment? All right. The next one is from Karen Nolan, and she appears to be against the open book part of the change to the proctoring. Does anybody have any questions or comments on Karen's comment? Okay. The next one is from Gabriel Mora, and he is against our change in the identification and wants us to actually add photos. Does anybody have any comments on Gabriel's? Okay. I believe we have a couple more. The next is from Robert McLeroy, and he's an instructor at Texas Community College and is against us on the eliminating proctoring and allowing open book. Does anybody have any comments or questions on Roberts? All right, I believe we have one more, maybe two. Nope, that was it. I'm sorry. All right, back to the committee. Now we have a choice. We can either recommend that we move forward with our proposal to the commission and recommend that they adopt it, or we can recommend change to the proposed rules, which would require us to repropose, or we can recommend the commission not adopt the rules.
And
I'll
Bill,
open the floor.
sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interject. There was one more comment specific to the next set of rules, but I think it was from the same commenter. Yeah, so just wanted to note that.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize. I thought she had three in there. I do apologize. Dan DeBell, this is the third comment, and talking about it's not overly burdensome to provide proctoring. Any questions or comments on Jan's? All right. Please forgive me for forgetting that one.
No worries.
All right. So to the committee, it's open floor for comments or give us some direction.
So, hey, Bill, question. I'm sorry, this is actually under the last session with the with A&M not offering the broker responsibility instructor and legal 1 and 2 instructor training. I know that is now going to fall under TREC. Do we know when those courses are going to be offered? I predict there being a big surge of people needing to take broker responsibility. So I just want to try to get ahead of the curve.
Okay. Can I ask a favor, Paul? I want to come back to this.
Yeah,
But
sure.
let's finish agenda item number 5 and we'll immediately go back to agenda item 4. Okay. Candy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Stedham. I'll go ahead. I'll throw the motion on the floor to approve and send the changes to the commission as presented today.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion made by Candy and a second by Cassie. Discussion. Cindy?
Discussion.
Chris, go ahead.
I'm just curious if staff's recommendation has changed after reading the public comments.
No, I think, ultimately this is the committee's call as to, whether to recommend or not. Again, I think the negative comments, one, again, I think it may be a misunderstanding of what the rule language does for the verification of ID change. The proctoring, I don't think we have an opinion.
Okay.
This is just up to you for a recommendation.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Cindy?
Excuse me, going on or off of the photo identification, possibly rewording it so it's not so ambiguous that it's very specific. They could use ID verification if they wanted to. I mean, that seems to me very common sense, but obviously they seem to have a real issue with not having it a requirement, but having it more as a possibility.
All right. Can we pull up the actual rule and look at the wording on that? Abby or Amber, whoever's got the rule.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There it is right there. The provider must.
All right. So I'll just read through it. The provider must, one, verify the identification of each student at class sign-up and when signing in for each meeting of the class. Two, ensure the student is present for the course for the hours of the time for which credit's awarded. Three, provide a 10-minute break per hour, at least every 2 hours. And four, not have daily course segments that exceed 12 hours. How's everybody else feel about what Cindy said or her comment? I mean, I think it's a good suggestion, but I don't think it's vague.
I think
I don't
the
think
issue hearing from the ones that went negative on it is that we are taking away the actual, I don't know. I mean, it says identification of each student. We're just not saying a photo ID. Don't know if we need to say in parentheses, i.e. photo ID. That's just a suggestion. Sorry.
I think it's a good suggestion, but one of the reasons we made this is because there were other ways to verify individuals throughout the course and taking it. I, for one, would not like to make a change to it. However, if the committee wants to, we will.
I agree with you, Bill. I think this is where we landed at verify. And like you said, Cindy, it could be, and maybe we come up with staff does here's a best practice of, here are your options. You can use a photo ID. You can use this, you can use that. But I think if we backtrack, then, our purpose was to make it a cleaner way for people to do it, knowing that there are other ways to verify other than a quote photo ID. So I'm for leaving it as it is.
I am as
And
well.
okay. And I'll also point out it was one person that had 3 comments on it. So it seemed like it was more, but there was definitely 2 people that objected to it. All right. Any other discussion on any part of this proposal? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. And Abby, I assume will present it to track the commissioners on the 4th. Is that correct?
Correct. This will go before the commission at their August commission meeting as a potential rule that can be adopted by the commission.
All right. Thank you very much. I do want to go back and address what Paul had. So can we move back to please agenda item number 4? And Paul, will you restate that? I think it's a great statement. So curious what the answer on that is.
So previously, when I've taken the instructor courses for Legal 1 and 2 and broker responsibility, they were offered by the Real Estate Center at A&M. For whatever reason, they were no longer offering that, and TREC is going to be providing that training. So I just want to know, do we have those programs scheduled, dates announced, etc., just so we can go ahead and register, because I assume, and I fully support the broker responsibility rule changing, but I think with that, we're going to have just a surge in the need of people taking that course.
I can speak to that if that's okay.
Okay.
Yes, we have taken over. We have had a great relationship with the real estate center over all of these years. It just so happens that we now have the bandwidth to take over the administration portion. So we've always been, the trainer, involved in the training and stuff, but A&M did a lot of all of that organization. We are in the process of launching a new website that will be specifically for this purpose, for the trainings of broker. What do we have coming up? Broker legal update. Right. Legal update is next. So we have dates secured, have locations secured. It's really going to be very similar. Our first date is September 23rd. Our last date is December 5th. And the website for registration should be up within 1 to 2 weeks. And then we'll also be pushing out a lot of communications. Summer and her team, Sierra, will help with that. But it's a great question. And yes, I know there are some other people that are kind of anxious to see when that schedule is going to be announced. So hang tight, give us another week or two, and then we'll have that published for you.
Okay, thank you.
Will that schedule also include for broker responsibility? I know you just spoke to legal update.
Are you talking about like for a cleanup? We call them those cleanup for trainings.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
or the instructor training.
Yes, we are going to do one of those. We're probably going to host it here in Austin, but we're a little tied up on resources right now. So probably look for the fall, and we'll have that one out as well.
Okay, super. I think Paul is correct. There's going to be a rush of people to get recertified on that weren't certified based on the new rule. There'll be more people taking it.
Right. It's a great point.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Any other questions from anybody on agenda item number 4? Then we'll move to agenda item number 6. And this is discussion and possible action regarding in-person education. And if you all will recall, this was requested at last meeting based on a public comment that came in, which is in the materials. And I propose we will see it up on the screen in a second. And Abby or Jennifer, I'll look to you guys to provide support and staff opinion on this before we start talking about it.
Do we have the comment? Oh, it's right here. Thank you. Sure, I will. I do not have an opinion, but what I do want to share with the committee is that there is no science-based recommendation that supports one type of delivery method over another. In fact, the science says that people have, especially adult learners, have different learning styles. And so there have been a lot of advances in adult learning and techniques and strategies and that kind of thing, especially over the last several years. So that's, again, I don't have a preference. It's up to this committee to decide, but that's kind of the adult education perspective.
Okay, thank you. Opening up to the committee for discussion. Paul, go ahead.
Sorry, I promise I will not try to take over this whole meeting with comments, but I respect the members' opinions. But, when I look at just our sales meetings before, let's just say COVID, that's when all, virtual stuff really started. We would have about 50 people in person and about 2 people online. Now we have about the same people in person, about 120 online. So I do understand that there is a connection and some of it is lost. But to me, and what I've seen educating our agents, it actually adds to the offerings and adds to their education to be able to, if they have a sick kid or they're at an inspection or whatever, to be able to tune into something versus, especially with us, our office is in Central Houston. We have offices in Kingwood, Woodlands, Bay Area. The requirement to make them come in live, I think it's just an unreasonable respect the request, but I just don't think it's possible or reasonable at this time.
Okay. Other comments from anyone on the committee?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak
Yes,
on
sir.
that, please.
Please do.
Thank you. We had schools that were using online platforms like Zoom and other computer-based learning platforms well before the pandemic. The inclusion of a variety of learning platforms gives potential license holders convenience and options, just like maybe even a university or community college does. And so I look at this and I understand the opinion. I just disagree with it.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else? I will add my opinion is the same as Byron's and Paul's, and I think it would be logistically difficult to bring people in person. And I've experienced the same thing that Paul has experienced on what has happened since the pandemic because of the pandemic. Is there any motion on this? Hearing none. We'll move to agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action regarding future agenda items. Cindy?
A question, and I don't know if this needs to be on an agenda, but Senate Bill 17, are we going to get more guidance from Trek regarding that? And
I'll
if
turn
you're
that
not
over to
familiar
Abby.
with them.
Yeah, so a lot of those bills, so for those of you that don't know, that's the what we kind of been calling the foreign person bill. It basically prohibits certain individuals and entities or groups from owning property in Texas. A lot of those bills we've actually shared with the broker lawyer committee to determine if any changes need to be made based on those bills. So far, they have not decided to make any changes as a result of that bill in particular. Part of that discussion was it's pretty complicated, and so trying to draft something I think would be equally complicated. So no movement at this point. There's always the possibility, something could come out in the future, but nothing at this point.
Can I ask a follow-up question pertaining to Senate Bill 1968 with the removal of sub-agency? I presume that broker lawyer will have some adjustments.
Yeah, these are great questions. Broker lawyer actually meets on Friday, and part of that discussion will be discussing, the potential of creation of an agreement form based on that statutory change. So TBD on that a little bit, but I'm sure we'll hear something soon.
Super. All right. Any other suggestions for possible agenda items? All right. Our October meeting may be light in agenda or may be very heavy, depending on what happens in the next couple of months. That being said, we'll move to agenda item number 8, which is discussion for the next meeting for this year, which will be Monday, October 6th at 10 a.m. Hopefully without a bunch of flooding. Is that date and time still good for everybody? Hearing no objections to that, I think we're running these meetings in record time. We're 29 minutes into the meeting. Is there anything that needs to be covered that we have not touched on yet today? And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.